So this is another edition of the Heel to the Face podcast. I'm Jarad.
I'm Brandon.
And obviously we're only going to talk one thing this week. Well, maybe other stuff, but of course, Sasha, Naomi. It's what everybody's talking about, and we'll talk about it here on the Heel to the Face podcast.
Fans celebrate with me from Rome to Rochester.
Bad Election would be my middle name. They might as well tag me up with my buddies from Syracuse.
So this is another edition of the Heel to the Face podcast. Brandon, I'm Jarad. Make sure you are following us at Heel to the Face on Twitter, and make sure you are subscribing wherever podcasts are available and on YouTube if you're watching us now. Just like everybody else this week, we are talking Sasha and Naomi to start off the show. Monday night, a lot of us, and me and Brandon included, were talking back and forth, and we didn't really know what was going on at first. We didn't know what to make of it. I didn't know if it was a work. I'm still not, I would probably say I'm not 100% sure it's not a work, but for the most part, we're knowing it's probably pretty true, pretty much a shoot. But it's a little confusing just because of the fact, I'll just throw my opinion out there right away. I think it's a little unprofessional. I agree with the Corey Graves. I don't necessarily think it had to be put on TV like that. But if it's exactly what they said it is, I don't really understand why they're so reluctant to do business.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it was very unprofessional. I'm with you 110%. I would say this, if the rumors are true, although the rumor mill saying that they didn't want to work with particular competitors and again do business, as you say, and that to me is very unprofessional. And this is Sasha Banks, though. Sasha Banks is known, that she doesn't, she likes to do things a certain way, and if she doesn't like her, she doesn't like what she's doing, she kind of just says the hell with it.
We've seen Sasha do this before.
Yeah, and here's the thing too: a lot of people aren't talking about this, at least that I've seen. Naomi's contract's coming up here, so her contract's due to expire very soon. So what are the implications to that? And here's the thing: I'll answer that question right now off the bat. I don't see her going anywhere. Some people are like, "Oh, it's AEW." She ain't going to AEW. First off. If she wants to come back to WWE, I don't think she's leaving WWE. If she leaves, it's it's on her own accord. I don't think WWE is not going to offer her a new contract because of this incident. It's not a make or break thing, I don't think. Plus, she is married to one of the Usos, so they got a little bit of pull these days working for the Bloodline. So if they want to make things happen, that's the way to they could stick their nose in. And honestly, I think Naomi. I think she's going to be part of the Bloodline. I think that's coming.
So we were talking off air, got a brand new car, and before I had a brand new car, didn't have Sirius XM radio. So now that I got this trial for like 6 months of Sirius XM radio,
he ain't gonna renew it.
Listening to a lot, but for the time being, been listening to a lot of the talk, and obviously Monday morning or Tuesday morning, and essentially all week long, I've been going to work essentially every day listening about Sasha Banks and Naomi, from everybody and anybody. Bully Ray, Tommy Dreamer, Renee Paquette, the whole 9 yards. It's the talk of the town.
Yeah.
And, everybody who has been in the business has kind of said the same thing. One, if you had a meeting with Vince McMahon, you're pretty high on the list, especially on a Monday Night Raw. If you're meeting with Vince McMahon on a busy television day, the fact that he's sitting down with you, you should think of yourself pretty special in that aspect.
100%.
Two, it's his vision, it's his ball, it's his field. Everything that he says goes. And when you sign the dotted line to work for WWE, you know this. And I was listening to the Tommy Dreamers and the Bully Rays, and they've brought forth ideas to Vince McMahon, and they've said, hey, I think we should do this. And they thought those ideas were great. And some of those ideas, and hearing one of them say, like the Dudley Boys on their most recent run in WWE, were talking about turning heel. They were talking about turning heel a night after they won a babyface match at a pay-per-view. Raw was in Philadelphia. They wanted to turn heel after they won the match. They were going to turn heel on Tommy Dreamer. It was Philadelphia. It's obviously
makes sense.
ECW guy and ECW guy.
100%.
You know what I mean?
I like that idea.
They were going to turn heel and be bad, essentially too, because of the fact that they're on one of their last runs and they need to switch it up a little bit. You know what I mean? So they don't fade away, which they did like 2 months later, and they went away and have been gone since. And I think they're probably done this time.
Well, Devon can't wrestle anymore.
So yeah, and they're now in the Hall of Fame and they're done.
That ship sailed.
So this was their last run. They wanted to make the most of it, and they said, hey, I want to do this. And Vince said, hey, why has it got to be Tommy Dreamer? He's not really that high on the radar. And they're like, well, it's perfect that it's Tommy Dreamer because it's Philadelphia. We're ECW guys. He's an ECW guy.
They're ECW originals.
Yeah, we're going to turn on our own team. That's essentially the thing. And he didn't see it, and they were upset, but they said, okay, boss, we'll do business.
That's the way it's supposed to be. You sign a contract, you honor the contract.
Yeah.
And to me, it's just Sasha trying to politic is how it is. And like to me, I think Sasha needs to stop worrying about. I think it's her. I think she has an ego problem. I think that's what it is. And I like Sasha Banks. My wife's that's her favorite wrestler. I personally think she's a great wrestler. I think she's a great entertainer. But sometimes I feel like her ego gets in the way of business. And when it comes to that, there's only so much WWE is going to let off the hook. I know Sasha Banks is a commodity. But if she keeps pulling these stunts, after a while, you don't think Vince is going to say, well, the hell with you then? I don't want you here. You're more trouble than you're worth at this point.
My major thing with what happened on Monday Night Raw is twofold. One, they're not right in the storylines of this six-pack challenge. So it's not like it seems kind of weird that they were even added. I didn't even know about this match until I knew about this match not happening. That's how much this match was on my radar. I think they announced it. I don't know when they announced it, but I might have announced it last Monday, but I kind of became aware of it as it was being changed. They're SmackDown competitors also. So I guess my thing is, if they were just not in this match, if this really happened backstage on Monday Night Raw and they were taken out of the match, why did WWE really need to say anything? They're SmackDown competitors. Nobody paid money to go to Raw, essentially, to see Sasha and Naomi. They were added in. I went to SmackDown this past Friday in Wilkes-Barre. Bobby Lashley showed up in a dark match. He's a Raw guy. I didn't pay to see Bobby Lashley. If Bobby Lashley wasn't there, I couldn't really request a refund or be upset about it. I had no idea it was going to be there. So the point is, these guys are SmackDown people. And if you're not on this, if you're not Raw people, I don't expect you to be there.
But here's the thing that I believe happened, and you guys can fact.
So I just feel WWE could have just.
You can fact check me on this, though. Our listeners, our viewers, they can fact check me on this because I'm just saying it just off of what I believe I saw is they advertised them to be on the show.
And I get that, but cards
issue.
subject to change, and it's not that big of a deal because it's not the Cody Rhodes current run, or it's not Roman Reigns defending the championship,
it's
or
not
something
a title match.
It's not anything grand, and you could just essentially say like Becky Lynch said. When I became aware of this was when Becky Lynch went up to Adam Pearce in the back and was like, "Hey, is this match still on?" Because Sasha and Naomi just grabbed their belt and went home or whatever like that. So this match is off.
Yeah.
So I thought you could have just pretty much said it at that. You could have just said that's the difference.
Did you already hear some of the other parts of it that are starting to kind of leak out, so to speak? And I mean, maybe we'll get some truth to it at some point from either Naomi or Sasha or both. It's not only that match, that six-pack challenge, but it sounded, from what I saw, and of course, again, this is all speculation. From what I saw, Sasha didn't want to put, I think she didn't want to put Ronda over. And I don't think Naomi wanted to put Bianca over is what I was reading out there. I don't know how true that is, but if that's the case, that's just not good business. Like at the end of the day, you're all there for one reason, to help the company.
Yeah, I heard
do business.
But just from the WWE perspective, before we get into that, I think that they could have they didn't have, like when they made the statement, who are they making this statement to? Card subject to change. You don't really have to put it out there. Like this whole detailed thing about the WWE put out about them in the back and all this stuff. It's like that too much information. Like you didn't need to tell us all that. You could have just said, hey, they weren't there, like when people get hurt or whatever reason, hey, they weren't in this match tonight, card subject to change, whatever. Like that happens all the time. You didn't need to put out this lengthy, like, here's what they did. Like, who are you telling this to? The fans?
And here's
like,
the thing,
you're like kind of blabbing on yourself here.
But here's the other thing too. Like when you say it like that, could it be a work?
The fact that that's what makes it feel more of a work is the fact that WWE didn't just sweep it under the rug and ignore it. You know what I mean?
Because they usually do ignore it.
Now, I know that they did it with the Stone Cold thing back in 2002, with him like leaving before the King of the Ring match against Brock Lesnar, and they made a whole story out of it, and they put it on Confidential, and they really talked about it a ton. But for the most part, WWE in situations like this can just say, hey, the match got changed. They're SmackDown competitors anyway. They could have even said something like, hey, Sasha Banks and Naomi, like Becky could have went to Adam Pearce and said like, Sasha Banks and Naomi told me that they're SmackDown competitors. They don't even know what they're doing here. So they took off. And then like, that's all we hear of it. And then obviously the rest is the dirt sheets. I don't think they needed a big grand explanation to fans. But they didn't come out on television and then leave.
When you did the way you just proposed that, you're kind of throwing Becky under the bus a little bit, though. That's the way it kind of comes off. Because you're like, oh, maybe she should have said it this way. Maybe it was just maybe it really was a Raw thing, so to speak, no pun intended, where that's just Becky, and saying, hey, I just saw them leave. Like, well, what the hell's going on? But here's the thing, like we were just saying, this could be a work because WWE usually just, like you said, they brush things under the rug. They don't even make it newsworthy. So part of me is like, okay, maybe this is a work. But we haven't heard anything from Naomi and Sasha about it. So what gives?
We haven't heard it. Yeah, we haven't heard anything from them. But obviously,
at this point, yeah,
people have said what the deal was, and frankly, the deal seems great. It's so funny that the things that they're upset about. One, you just became the tag team champions. They didn't really have much for you at WrestleMania. Sasha Banks is a very big time competitor. They don't really have much for you at WrestleMania, so they didn't throw you in some battle royal. They gave you some belts. I know you're normally a singles competitor, but they gave you championship belts when the other championships were obviously being taken care of elsewhere. They didn't ignore you. They didn't Finn Balor you and just keep you off the WrestleMania card.
Yep.
They put you on the card and they made you a champion. Two, they were going to make both of you guys, while still tag team champions, also in championship matches at the next pay-per-view.
But neither one of them wanted to let somebody go over on them. That's the issue.
They were upset that the tag team championships weren't going to be defended again until Money in the Bank, which really
is that big of a deal?
And it's not that long. You're missing one pay-per-view. Again, the IC belt and the US belt haven't been defended on pay-per-views since Peacock has been the main streaming provider of WWE. So when you say like, oh, we're not going to be defending it at the upcoming pay-per-view,
it's not that big of a deal.
You just defended it last Friday on Smackdown. So it's not like it's going to be about a month. You're going to go about a month between defenses.
Again, it's not a big deal.
Not a big deal, especially, too, because in that month between defenses, your guys are going to be too busy in singles matches. So your tag team, you're going to be the Bloodline, but the women's division, you're going to be tag champs and going after singles belts, and you're going to be playing the Bloodline card where you're going to say, like, hey, after Hell in a Cell, we're going to hold all the belts in WWE.
I will say this.
That's a cool storyline. That's a main event spot.
I'll say this, too, just to kind of put a cap on things. Everything that I've seen, a lot of superstars, at least in the back, there's reports out in the back that nobody supports them on that, of how they handle business. Like, they're not getting the support of their peers. What does that tell you? That tells you that there's an issue, that's an issue, and that's unprofessional. As much as I like Sasha and Naomi, there's better ways to handle it. At the end of the day, you have to understand, you signed a contract. The boss tells you to do something, and it's not like he was telling you to make you do something that was going to be embarrassing and screw your image up or something like that. It was literally, you're gonna let somebody go over on you. Big freaking deal. Why is that a huge deal? To me, in
the main event of all things, they're not making you look ridiculous. They're not making you wear lingerie. They're not throwing.
You're not going back to the Divas thing.
They're not throwing pie in your face or doing anything ridiculous.
You're not doing mud wrestling. Things like that.
They're not. They're putting you in the main events.
Yeah, that to me, I think it's a little ridiculous. Now, I want to get to some really interesting tweets I've seen in the last 24 hours or so during this week. From the Rated R superstar Edge, what do you make?
I've seen the tweets. We're talking Tommaso Ciampa,
which I mentioned last week.
We're talking Paige,
which I did not see that coming.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, interesting. I don't know the 100% validity to it, or if it's just, we've seen this before. We've seen the Kenny Omegas, we've seen the CM Punks, we've seen them put out these cryptic tweets.
Could this be like the all broken neck team? It's just like, you know what I mean? I'm just saying, it's like I saw, and I'm not taking credit for that. I saw somebody on Twitter like, is he assembling all the people that have had neck problems? What's the deal here? Yeah,
it would be a lot of Tommaso Ciampa is obviously a good competitor, but Paige would just be in another managerial role. She would be in
and here's the thing, that there's some interest there too, and some intrigue for me where Tommaso and Damian Priest, they can be kind of like Edge's proteges. Paige can be almost like a protege. Like, she'll be like the number 2 behind Edge, but she can make Rhea Ripley like her little protege in a sense too. Obviously under the direction of Edge, but there's so many possibilities here. I said it last week. Tommaso Ciampa would be a great fit.
Yeah, I don't want to see this faction get too big. I think getting to like 6 people. Or 7 guys would probably be too big. I think maybe like up to 5 at the most. Right now they're at 3. So.
I would say 1 male, 1 female, and we're good.
Yeah, and I think the Edge tweets are probably a little more just to keep you guessing, a little more cryptic.
Of course, did you see the Tommaso? People are getting into it way too much over the past few days. There was Tommaso put out like a tweet about let's see, Candice LeRae and Johnny Wrestling, my favorite jokers, right before the AEW jokers.
Yes.
People are like, oh my God, they must be coming. And let's be honest, not to jump too far off of that. Johnny Elite, very nice surprise.
So if you want to move over to AEW, we'll talk about AEW right now. At least some takeaways from this past week on Dynamite. The women's Joker, I don't have it in front of me, but the point is because it wasn't anybody that's crazy. I'm
not gonna lie to you. When I was hoping it would be somebody else, and then it was, I think it's Maku or Maka, something like that.
It's not Charlotte Flair.
It's not a big name.
That kind of thing. But the one in the men's world.
That was a good one.
Yes. Johnny Elite. He's been Johnny Mundo. He's been Johnny Impact. He's been Johnny Nitro. He's been John Morrison. He's now Johnny Elite. He's been Johnny everything.
That's great. And here's the best part. He's not under contract with AEW. This could be a one-off.
So I put this out on our Twitter. Make sure you were following us on Twitter. It's a Twitter vote with Johnny Elite making his AEW debut. And we've seen similar debuts recently. And it's an honest question. And a lot of people said they're fine with it. That was the answer that most people gave. And the question was, are you fine with people making their debuts in AEW like they have recently and immediately taking the pin?
Yeah, I'm good with it. I voted it's fine.
I mean,
well, here's the thing. It's not like they're showing up against Joe Schmo, and I know it's funny. Samoa Joe was the competitor. It's not like it's some wrestler that we know like, Johnny Elite should go over on this guy, no problem. Him taking a loss to Samoa Joe, it's not a big deal.
It's just difficult because everybody that keeps coming in, they come in like these huge names, and then they're.
But I'll tell you this though, like Maka, I might be getting that wrong. I'm not really familiar with her work all that much. I don't have a skin in the game, and I don't know enough about her. It just wasn't. It was kind of blah for me. So if Britt Baker would have lost to her, that's not good. Because who is this competitor? I don't know her. I know some of the fans like her because she sings.
I think if Britt Baker would have lost to her, that would have definitely amped her up. That would have put her on a pedestal. That would have made you take notice in who she is instead of what
I will say
seems like a squash match, but with a person that you're supposed to know.
I'm going to nitpick one thing about AEW that it's like they're going back to the recycling bin on some things. The way they're bringing Wardlow to the ring and like the whole thing reminds me of Goldberg back in the day. Like, let's not do that. Besides that being the nitpicky part, they're making a star out of Wardlow right now. That I will give AEW their due, MJF in particular. They are making Wardlow into a star. I just wish they would not be so cheesy and use the same style entrance as Goldberg is famous for. That's the only nitpick. But overall, I think what they're doing for Wardlow is fantastic.
So another AEW takeaway, something that actually hasn't happened yet. It was during the taping of Rampage. I don't know if you caught this one. You won't see it on Rampage. I imagine it'll be edited out because I think it took like 10 minutes of time to get him out. But Bryan Danielson gets caught between the ring and the entranceway. So at AEW, they got the old-fashioned entranceway, and maybe they won't after this. The one that connects right to the ring, WCW style. And, it's kind of cool to look at, but I guess, injuries can happen, and injury essentially did happen in the sense of he was coming down. I don't know if it was during the match or if it was on his walk down, but he got his foot caught between the entranceway and the ring itself. And it took some people to get him out and was noticeably limping backstage to the back.
That's not good.
Once he got out, the rumors or what I've read is 10 minutes it took for him to get out of
that can be kind of scary, don't you think?
Yeah.
A lot of damage can be done there in a short time.
So I wonder if AEW is going to drop the extended entranceway that goes right to the ring. It's weird because I don't think that they have it all the time. They have it every so often.
It depends. Like they have a couple different stage setups. So it maybe they'll take it out of rotation for a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know if it has something to do because I know they were in the Houston area and the arena they were in was pretty small. So maybe it has something to do with like smaller arenas and the stage setup. I don't know
what, and maybe the best thing that comes out of this, obviously, besides Bryan being okay, ready to get ready for this big pay-per-view match that's coming up. But aside from obviously making sure he's good, maybe this is a design flaw that they figured out, then they can make this better so it doesn't happen again.
Well, I think about like how, obviously we talk about the Owen Hart thing in the sense of how like WWE never did that kind of entrance ever again. Not kind of respect for Owen Hart, but also because, they just it was mostly out of respect for Owen Hart because I think they could do it safely. Obviously, you could have learned from your thing, but it's funny because I've watched some WCW post Owen Hart's death, and WCW was still doing it with Sting a few times. The whole descending from, and I've seen it in maybe like Impact and other places, descending from the ceiling. WWE has never done that again because of their specific incident with it, which is kind of a shame because it stinks that because of that is something that is never going to be brought back to the repertoire. The Shawn Michaels thing is going to live in infamy. We'll never see another entrance like that or mock the Shawn Michaels, or Sting. We'll never see him come to WWE like that.
I'm okay with it. I don't think it's a bad
so
thing.
I just think about the ramp way. You know what I mean? Like, is this going to make it so that like a company like AEW just never has the ramp way like that again? I don't know, out of respect, but just out of like, hey, let's just not risk it.
I think what'll happen is they're probably going to re-engineer it, or so to speak. Maybe they found a design flaw, and they're just gonna. I mean, they'll probably use the other staging up until they figure out a new design flaw, because I don't think that's completely gone. I think they figure out the design flaw and they bring it back.
So at 58 years old, he wrestled his last match, what we thought for good, in WWE. Quite the send-off. Probably one of the most emotional and WrestleMania-like moments that you could have. And then it was, I think, 5 years later, at the age of 63, that he wrestled his last match to date, and that was in Impact Wrestling. And now at 73, Ric Flair is getting back in the ring, Nashville, Tennessee, the day after SummerSlam. We don't know his opponent yet. We saw the tweets. He's been working out with Jay Lethal.
Ricky the Dragon Steamboat is the report.
Is not the opponent.
I thought it was the report.
Well, did
he shoot that down?
Ricky Steamboat has come out and said that is not the case.
Okay,
he's not getting in the ring. So you saw maybe what someone put out without Ricky's knowledge. But Ricky put out that was not the case.
So who's it going to be then?
So the question is, who's it going to be? And
why not have it Jay Lethal? He's been working with him.
And that's a good answer for that, because I was actually talking with a friend yesterday. We were talking about this Ric Flair match and who it could be against. Would you want it against another 70-year-old person?
No, I would want it against Jay Lethal, because Jay Lethal is known as one of the safest workers in the business.
You want it against somebody who is going to look. You don't want. I mean, this is what WCW used to mock back, or WWF used to mock about WCW back in the day. Macho Man and Hulk Hogan. The geriatric match. Those two guys in the ring. You want somebody younger in the ring. You don't want an Undertaker versus an Undertaker, 60-year-old versus 60-year-old.
No, I think there's two layers to it. Again, Jay Lethal is one of the safest workers in the business. I think anyone that's in the business would agree with that. He's one of the safest workers. He trains a lot of people. That's just what he's done. He's just great, and he's been working with Ric Flair, so they can essentially have this match already scripted out months in advance. So all they're doing is just fine tuning it to make Rick look like $1 million. That's what it's all about.
Me on record is saying that Jay Lethal or somebody like Jay Lethal would be the best of a bad situation, because the best of a bad situation, because essentially to me the best situation overall would just not to be having Ric Flair wrestle anymore. Him to be done in the ring.
It's a little ridiculous.
I mean, I guess he wants to have a farewell match and go out in front of a bunch of people, but he already did that. I think WrestleMania was a pretty good spot to do that in.
It is. It's about his ego.
Yeah, he said it's not about money, so it's got to be about something. He's 73 years old.
It's about his ego. He just wants to feel the energy.
I'm wondering, if this is going to be a whole card. I mean, it's going to be Ric Flair's last match, but obviously you pay for tickets. Other matches on the card. It's going to be a whole thing. It's SummerSlam weekend. So you wonder what they're going to kind of do. What kind of crowd is going to show up? Are they going to try for a big crowd? Is it going to be a small indie kind of crowd? Only time will tell. But Ric Flair is coming back in the ring July 31st, the night after SummerSlam in Nashville, Tennessee. And let's just pray for Ric Flair there. He's been through a lot. I guess he's Terry. He's funny. He used to always dislike the Terry Funks of the world, and he's kind of worse than him, or at least to the same.
Yeah, I mean he's on that level at this point, except for the barbaric matches that Terry Funk was doing into his 70s.
Yeah, well, I mean, but can you blame? But can a Ric Flair look down at a Mick Foley or a Terry Funk when he's over here not being able to say goodbye to the business either?
I'm with you 100% on it. It's at the end of the day, I just hope when the match is done, Rick walks out and he's okay. That's all I care about.
So finally, a little bit of a surprise, but I guess maybe it's going to lead to something if it does. That's not a surprise, and that's this Friday on SmackDown, the unification of the Tag Team Championships, which was going to main event WrestleMania Backlash, and to my eyes would have been a bigger match at WrestleMania Backlash than the 6-man tag we got.
It was pretty good.
And so I thought
it was good, by the way.
So I eventually thought, especially with Roman Reigns rumors being out of Hell in a Cell, that it was going to main event Hell in a Cell. But it's going to be on SmackDown this upcoming Friday night. Now, what I said to preface that is that I kind of think that maybe this isn't going to be a unification match in the end. I think that it's going to be maybe end in a DQ or a count out. The bets are going to stay on each person, and then we're going to push this down the line to a pay-per-view.
Yeah,
Hell in a Cell would be the perfect pay-per-view, because if it's a DQ or a count out, then Hell in a Cell kind of is like, well, this time there'll be no count outs. There'll be no disqualifications because it'll be in Hell in a Cell. But either way, they're going to attempt to unify the belts this Friday on SmackDown.
I think you're right. I think it ends in DQ or double count out. I think they're gonna. I don't think they're gonna push this to a pay-per-view.
Yeah, I mean, because it didn't happen at WrestleMania Backlash, and now we're going to have it on a SmackDown instead. I mean, and especially with Roman Reigns being out, I feel like we could get more out of this match.
Well, here's the thing. Speaking of Roman Reigns, I mean, there's more stuff, more details that have come out regarding his contract. So it's not exactly the lighter schedule that some are reporting. It's just he's not going to go to every single town. He's going to go to the bigger...
Which is fine, because he should be a special attraction. He's the overall champion.
I agree. He doesn't need to come to every little podunk town all the way down the road. And he's going to have a little bit lighter schedule. It's not going to be a Brock Lesnar schedule. That's what some were making it out to be. So
yeah, he's already been reported that he'll be at Madison Square Garden for the July 25th Monday Night Raw, right before SummerSlam. I imagine he'll be on the SummerSlam card. So, yeah, I think he'll be around. So there'll be no need to drop the belts or anything like that. But I guess my thing is, if the belts are unified this Friday, let's say that there is no disqualification or count out. If the belts are indeed unified on SmackDown, who do you see eventually? I guess who would you see if you had to pick winning these belts and being the unified tag champs?
The Bloodline. Simple as that. Give them all the belts. And here's the other thing too. Jimmy and Jay were on Corey Graves' show last week, and they said they want US and IC titles. So why not try to get all the belts? What the hell, right?
I mean, they'll look like Kenny Omega a couple years ago. I mean,
think of it. Think how crazy that would be. The dominance. Where I'm not saying it's happened. I'm not putting that in the universe. But they not only unify the tag titles, but Jimmy and Jay each get a US or IC title, and then Roman has all the other. So at that point, what are you going to do? You're going to get Naomi to win both belts, and then all the belts are in the Bloodline?
Yeah, I mean, you almost had that, I guess, in theory, like storyline. We were talking to obviously lead off the show that, they were the tag champs and they were going after singles belts. But time will tell. I think that's maybe just a little too much for the fact that you'd have to have the Usos on pretty much every segment. I mean, I like the Usos and all, but they're not literally they shouldn't be on Raw, SmackDown, because they'll have to be in every storyline.
They're super entertaining, though.
Yeah.
I don't mind seeing a lot of Usos. I'm good with.
But they have all the belts. Essentially, that means if they have all the belts, they're still going to be in a single storyline for the time being, and you have to have enough people that are then going to be in storylines without belts. That means Ricochet's, Finn Balor's, Randy Orton, they're all going to be in non-title storylines. Everyone's going to be. You'll go to a house show essentially and see no titles if the Usos just happen to not be there.
Hey, I'll just say this: there's a lot of stuff building up as we get on the road to SummerSlam. One other thing too. Speaking of some news that just broke today, Stephanie McMahon. I got to get your thoughts on that. I mean, she's taken, and of course, people are saying, the way some of the headlines were very misleading. Where she's leaving WWE. She is not leaving. She's not like hanging it up completely. She's taken a step back to, take a little break from the business. She'll be back. She even said on her tweet earlier today that she's taken a step back. She'll be back at a later date. I got to ask you, do you think it's just for her to recharge their battery?
Or should have another kid? I don't know.
I don't think I don't think they have any more kids at this point.
Yeah, no. I mean, I just again, you have to remember that there is no off season in WWE.
Sure.
So yeah, you got to do this. I understand Vince McMahon doesn't do it, but that's Vince McMahon. Everybody else wants to do it. Everybody else gets married, goes on honeymoons, wants vacations, spend time with your kids.
Well, the speculation you got to do it.
Even the Stephanie McMahon.
The speculation was the whole Triple H, like what's going on with Triple H. Last I heard, he's back working, so I don't think it's a Triple H thing. I think I lean more towards she is just looking to recharge those batteries.
I look at it as summer is coming up, and what better time to hit the beach and to kind of hang out
with
and
the
chill.
Kids. Well, the kids are going to be out of school. It's a good time.
So that's what I look at it. It's not really that big of a deal. Obviously, she's not really on television that much.
No.
I don't think the product's really going to suffer. And if anything did suffer or there was any sort of catastrophic thing, she's a phone call away. Even if she steps away from going to every single meeting, it's not like she's not going to be far away.
No, she'll be back soon enough.
Yeah, it's like if
worry.
Vince McMahon, he would answer phones from a hospital room. So
Yeah.
they're not really going away.
No.
She's not like throwing her phone in the water and taking off for Japan.
No.
So that's going to do it, though, for another edition of this week's show. We'll see if those tag belts get unified. We'll see what happens this Friday on SmackDown. Are we going to have another tag team championship match on SmackDown for the now vacated, if they end up being vacated, women's tag team belts? We'll find out more when it comes to all of that, and we'll talk about it next week on the Heel to the Face podcast. For Brandon, I'm Jarad, and we will talk to you then.